There are three main English speaker mistakes that we are going to look at here. And the great thing is that you can change them, even if you don't think you have a great ear for Spanish. Because the reason you might not have a great ear for Spanish yet is probably because you haven't had very much help with it. Most courses and apps treat pronunciation as kind of an afterthought. They throw in the basics, they say a, e, I, o, u, and then they pretty much expect you to do the rest yourself without any further training or help. So let's start changing that right now. By the way, I'm Connor, and this is Breakthrough Spanish, a channel to help simplify Spanish so that you can speak with more confidence. The first mistake has to do with an interference from English that affects almost every student that I've worked with, and typically they're not aware that they're doing it. So here's what happens. English speakers tend to pronounce Spanish words like these as plátano, casa, cabeza, instead of plátano, casa, cabeza. And what they are doing is reducing the vowels. They're turning them into what's known as a schwa sound, which is basically the sound And this happens all the time in English. Really, anytime we have a vowel that is not emphasized. That is the pattern that we use in English, as in button, taken, pencil, computer, or in phrases like I want to go, or he can see, or should I help? If you grew up speaking English, you've probably never needed to think about this, but it is a rule that we apply not consciously to our English, which means that most likely you are not consciously or accidentally applying it to your Spanish too by reducing vowels. In particular, vowels that are not emphasized, vowels that don't fall in the emphasized syllable. So if you have an American accent or an English-speaking accent when you speak Spanish, you will have a tendency to say these words like this: nadar, nadar, caminar, caminar, viajar, viajar, mesa, mesa, puerta, puerta, micrófono, micrófono, lámpara, lámpara, mochila, mochila, directo, directo, contacto, contacto. Notice how these vowels don't sound super clear. Contacto, directo. If you listen to a Spanish speaker, they will say them something more like nadar, nadar, caminar, viajar, mesa, puerta, micrófono, lámpara, mochila, directo, contacto. Where each vowel is the same no matter the position. And I know that you've heard that before, but knowing something and being able to do it in conversation are two very different things. That's why it takes a lot of proactive practice to be able to improve. If you want to practice this stuff more after this video, there's a free bonus lesson at the first link in the description below. How do you pronounce these words? If you speak Spanish with an American or English speaker's accent, most likely you are pronouncing them something like this: bueno, cinco, baño, peso, leche, nieve, café, ceviche. This is another influence from English, where it's common for vowels to move, to glide into another sound. This is called a diphthong. And in English, we have tons of these. And there are two English diphthongs that impact Spanish the most, two sounds, A and O. We get these in English in words like sane, face, cafe, so, no, phone. So when we say words like cinco, we inadvertently apply the same gliding vowel that we use in English in so or no. So we end up saying cinco, cinco, instead of cinco, cinco. And when we say this word, we apply the English sound from cafe, cafe, rather than saying the Spanish café, café, café. In Spanish, we only get these combined, these gliding vowels, when there are two vowels, as in reino, reino. Compare that to reno, reno, reino, reno. So in Spanish, one vowel always equals one vowel sound. Here's a word that is a great example: peso, peso, which an American accent will pronounce as peso, peso. You can practice improving the pronunciation of this word by bringing these syllables apart and then gradually bringing them back together. Peso, 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 peso. So with that in mind, let's practice pronouncing the words that we saw just a minute ago. Bueno, bueno. Cinco, cinco. Baño, baño. Peso, peso. Leche, leche. Nieve, nieve. Café, café. Ceviche, ceviche. Some of this stuff might seem kind of minor, and it is true that anyone will understand you if you say ceviche, ceviche instead of ceviche, ceviche. But the secret, or kind of often ignored benefit that I alluded to earlier, is that training your ear to more clearly hear the sounds of Spanish means that your comprehension gets better and better and better. Training your ear to expect Spanish sounds is really good for your comprehension. So even if you don't care much about pronunciation, it's worth paying attention to and training it and practicing it for this reason. The next mistake is one that's actually a little easier to fix than the previous two, but most English speakers don't realize they are doing it, so they can't fix it. Let's take a look at a couple examples, and then I'll explain what's happening. How would you pronounce these words? Put your hand in front of your mouth and pronounce them out loud. Palo, tío, caso. Notice the first syllable when you're pronouncing it, the p, t, k sounds. If you notice a burst of air coming out, you are probably saying them with an English or an American accent. Pronounced that way, these words are going to sound like palo, palo, tío, tío, caso, caso. What you want is a more muted sound. Palo, palo, tío, tío, caso, caso. Do you hear the difference? Caso, caso, tío, tío, palo, palo. But how do you fix it? Well, you can't fix it overnight, but here is a pretty helpful trick. With the sounds P and C, it's relatively simple. You want the sound from English words like spot or skate, because those are not aspirated. We don't say spot or skate. We take that p and k sounds and we'll apply it to your Spanish. I'll give you some words to practice with in just a second. The T is a little trickier, but it's really important because it affects other sounds, in particular the R. If you struggle to pronounce the R in words like trabajo or tres, very often the T is the reason why, because the Spanish te is pronounced with the tongue against the top teeth, típico, típico, not against the roof of the mouth, typical, typical, típico, typical. If you try to say tres or trabajo with the English t, it's almost impossible to jump to the Spanish R. Tres, tres, trabajo, trabajo. So it's really important to make sure that your Spanish te happens with the tongue against the top teeth, te. You can practice not aspirating your p, t, k sounds by looking at those English words, spot, skate, stop, and kind of noticing that difference. Then you can practice with Spanish words that have sp, st, sk, as in español, estar, oscuro, because those will be easier words to practice with. And you can feel what an unaspirated sound feels like. And then you can apply it to more Spanish words, in particular words that start with those sounds where we are most prone to doing the p, k in English, or as English speakers. For example, español, pañal, pañal. Estable, estable, tabla, tabla. Escaso, escaso, caso, caso. You can keep practicing sounds like these at the first link in the description. And for a comprehensive step-by-step way to improve all parts of your pronunciation, I actually have a complete course called Confident Spanish Pronunciation. All the links that you need are in the description box below. There's also another important sound that I didn't get to cover in this video, and that is, of course, the R sounds, which are a huge challenge for many English speakers. So, watch this video next to learn step-by-step how to master the R sounds in Spanish.